For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andy Holland. I teach here for the Indiana University School of Music. And I teach a class, an entire semester devoted solely to the Beach Boys. Yeah. Yes. Where students get to learn about your songwriting, your recordings, your live act, watch videos, learn the whole story, and get 3 credit hours of college credit in doing so, which, if I may say, is a win-win situation. Who's with me? But anyway, I don't want to bore you. I'm going to get over to these guys, but one thing I got to say to these guys is thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. You guys have earned everything that you've gotten for all the great songs you've written, the great records that you've made, all the concerts that you've played all over the world for all those millions of people. We all just want to say thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you very much, all of you. All right, Mike, here you go. Oh, by the way, down here we have Jeff Foskett, who's a guitar player, singer, been with the band for a long, long time. Scott Totten here, guitar player, vocalist, band leader. Of course, you all know Bruce Johnson over here in the blue cap. He's been with the band since 1965. And last but not least, Mike Love, everybody, founding member. Here you go, Mike.
How do you operate this? Just kidding. All right. Last year we did 142 performances. Yeah, and there were just a few where we did 2 shows a day, maybe a half a dozen times. We did an afternoon and an evening, or 2 in an evening, or whatever it might be. But so there's probably 135 individual performances at different places.
And the songs have not been lowered 5 keys because we got older. I'm not kidding. We, for the most part, what percentage would you say the keys are pretty close?
I would say 95% of the songs we do in the original key, and the rest of them are in a higher key than on the record.
Because it's more friendly to guitar playing a lot of times. But our voices are still hanging out somewhere.
The IRS and college tuitions for children, grandchildren, things like that. Yeah, but actually, the fact is that it's the audience response to our songs. Well, I mean, obviously, it's a great way to a hobby became a profession, and so we're very blessed and fortunate for that. I didn't look at it like that. I mean, I think there's different styles of music, and there's so many different great, performers and performances and recordings and stuff, and we're just part of the musical landscape, and we're fortunate to. Yeah, I think these days on oldies radio, the Beach Boys and the Beatles and Motown are the 3 most performed genre. So it's really great. We're in some really good company, and we're just fortunate to be well regarded and stuff like that, and to still be able to go out and do performances and have people show up after 50 years, which is kind of amazing.
I should say something about the no rivalry, just appreciation. That I took 2 Pet Sounds mono albums, because that's the way Brian mixed things. And the radio, AM was all mono, and the Beatles would make an album, they'd say, George, make a stereo mix. Anyway, I took Pet Sounds to England in May of 1966. I just kind of put it in my bag. But this is the opposite of Don't Shoot the Messenger. I'd been in the band about 10 minutes. I was on my 3rd album. We did three albums in 1 year. But I had the album with me, and everyone was curious about it because Sloop John B was a really big hit from the album. And so eventually, Keith Moon, he would have left The Who in a heartbeat to be one of the Beach Boys. He just loved that genre. But he brought Lennon and McCartney over to my hotel, and they wanted to hear Pet Sounds. So I played it for them twice, and they really loved it. And I'm told that the vibe from Wouldn't It Be Nice went into Here, There, and Everywhere on the Revolver album. So it's no rivalry, it's just appreciation. It's all about the music. I don't think we're trying to be, you just do music and all this wonderful stuff happens to you, and we're still hanging around, 150 nights a year.
I hang around from town to town. I'm a real co-head. Oh, never mind. The wheel. Yeah, when
No
we started
bathrooms
out,
down the hall.
it was pretty funny when we first started out. There was a station wagon with the U-Haul trailer, and we would take all the amplifiers and drums and other instruments and go from one place to the other, usually Midwestern ballrooms. And we would set up and break down our own equipment, and then we found out there was a thing called a roadie. So we delegated instantaneously. And so we would, stay in the little Holiday Inns or Days Inns or something like that. Now we spoil ourselves. We stay at some really nice places, and even once in a while we might take a private plane if it's impossible to get from one place to the next. Once in a while we'll do that. And so it's actually much nicer these days. That it'll be over just around 2 hours of music, and that's our preferred thing. When we go to, like Scott mentioned, a casino, it's like they begrudgingly want music there. They just want you there so that we'll bring people in, and it's a marketing thing for them, and they'll have different types of they'll have country, they'll have R&B, the Beach Boys once in a while. Well, they do that so that the different demographics they would like to appeal to are solicited, but they don't really care about music, in my opinion. And for us, it's kind of like we feel if we can't do our 2 hours of music, we don't feel as satisfied as we would otherwise. Now, I've heard of people who come out and do 30 minutes and then leave, get back on their bus and go. But we're not like that. We always like to do, everybody does a lead in the group, and everybody, yeah, in fact, yeah, we have the video of Carl Wilson singing God Only Knows, and Dennis Wilson singing Do You Want to Dance? Now these guys, Carl passed away in 1998 and Dennis in 1983. And to have them singing with us, it's all very inclusive. It's as comprehensive as we can possibly get. And that's what we like to do. Whereas, some places if you're in a baseball stadium, In My Room doesn't go over as well as it does in a performing arts center. So you just learn this by trial and error, like I said. And there are other songs that don't play well to a large audience that's mainly an audience who knows you from stuff they've heard on the oldies radio station.
We once played a prison and made the mistake of playing In My Room.
Oh.
I should say something. So you've got Tony Bennett doing the Great American Songbook. Then you've got, so that's a genre, right, of music. Then you have all those great songs that came out of New York, at the Brill Building, where you'd have Neil Sedaka writing songs and Carole King and Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. And at the same time, Brian Wilson and Mike Love were writing songs. So, and they're equally as amazing to me as You've Lost That Loving Feeling by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. So my favorite Beach Boys song that I'm not singing on, I am now, from about 1963, Mike wrote the lyrics and Brian wrote the music, and it's always going to be The Warmth of the Sun. That's my favorite.
I think mine is Wouldn't It Be Nice. Michael?
California Girls isn't chopped liver.
And he's a vegetarian, by the way.
Scotty T. And the eyes have it. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, but Good Vibrations is the most unique, progressive, avant-garde, and it's still avant-garde. Nothing sounds like it. And I came up with, I'm picking up good vibrations, she's giving me the excitations, which we'll do in its complete form tonight. Yeah, anyway, yeah, so I think that's probably the most unique and artsy one. But, I mean, there are things that appeal to various personalities and individual tastes and stuff. So it's also, if you talk about what's your favorite song, it's like if you had 6 kids and 4 would fit in the boat in the shark-infested waters. Which 2 are you going to throw out, you know?
Who's your favorite parent?
Yeah, really. So I don't know. It's kind of tough because you've got a lot of great songs that are all neat songs. So you really care about all of them. So it's a little rough to pick out a favorite. But these guys are so elitist that they probably have reasons that are beyond the ken of most mortals. Beyond the ken. Sometimes we'll retire a song for a year or more.
A few decades.
Yeah. Like for a while, I got burnt out on singing rock and roll music. Of course, that's not our song. That's Chuck Berry. No offense to Chuck, but he was a big inspiration for particularly the writing and so on. But one can get a little tired of doing a particular song.
You might want to go and dig up a mono version of Pet Sounds. Brian, for the most part, didn't have hearing in one side of his ear, so he had to mix in mono, and the way you promoted recordings back in those days, it was AM radio. FM was there, but it wasn't happening yet. And the mono mixes are very powerful mixes. And as I said earlier, what the Beatles would do, they'd say, George Martin, make a stereo, because we all knew everybody heard us in mono, but Brian only could do mono, and they are so punchy. I mean, you would absolutely love it. In a perfect world, play it on a turntable. I mean, actually get the album, and there are, more about us than we do. Do we have a mono a pressing of it released? Okay, just listen to it. You'll love it. It's very cool. No, it's mono. It's something, you guys, we have so much technology, but we've had the thump and bump on the radio for years, and we've, the microphones since before World War II, they've been able to get the 20 to 20,000 cycles, and when we were able to get into the world of magnetic tape recording, all of a sudden we've had commercially, since Bing Crosby started doing his radio show on tape, we've had this great fidelity for years and years. But you need to listen to at least one Beach Boys song anyway in mono to see why it worked.
I was thinking, okay, how do you make this so it's more universal and appealing to multi-generations? And one of the neat things about our concert and the music, there was a little 10-year-old girl, we were in, I think it was Paducah, Kentucky, and she was in a meet and greet, and we asked her, well, what's your favorite song? She said, 409. Now, 409 was the B-side of the single Surfin' Safari in 1962. It was created 40 years before she was born. So that blew my mind. It was amazing. I said, here's a 10-year-old girl, her favorite Beach Boys song out of all those songs is 409. That's truly amazing. So, not that we had any conscious awareness of doing something that would appeal to various age groups when we did 409, but it's amazing how songs can appeal irregardless of the age of the audience or what.
I was 22 years old, and I'd already been spending time with Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil. You've Lost That Loving Feeling, all this stuff, you know. And then being around Brian now and Mike, another great songwriting team. But I remember Brian was all excited about his track for California Girls, and he said, Mike, you gotta write some words. So I watched Mike in the hallway of Western Recorders, in the hallway, just with a legal-sized piece of paper, writing this great song very quickly, and it was very impressive, very impressive.
It was a different experience because before going to Holland to record, we'd always recorded in Hollywood, and it was, and so it was pretty neat. We all had individual rented homes, and I stayed in a place called Bloemendaal, and would go to get the fresh fruit in the morning, and had the muesli and the cereal and all that. So it was a really neat experience to do that. But it was costly too, because we flew all kinds of stuff over there, and it was a ridiculous expense, but it was a great experience.
It was an amazing group effort album, and it was fun, and Brian had this huge house and this really cool studio, and I remember Al was recording a honk on a horn for one track from Brian's car and holding the mic over the top of out of the studio down to the garage and silly stuff like that. And it was just a lot of fun. I don't know, it's just one of those things that kind of, it just happened by accident. And I do remember I had the greatest girlfriend then, too, as a matter of fact. And that didn't hurt. So I had a wonderful time. Well, that's part of it. I was single and, I don't know, 27 years old. I was pretty young. But the songs, oh my God. Was Forever on that album? Yes. Yeah. I mean, Dennis in the Shadow of Brian. I mean, he was emerging as a writer, and I love Forever. And is it Our Sweet Love? Is that the name of it? I mean, just all these amazing songs. And I think that's probably one of our least selling and most loved albums.
To be knowledgeable about the music business is very crucial, actually, because when we started, I didn't even know what publishing was. I knew vaguely that you had to copyright a song so that people, there was something on file with the government that you actually wrote that song. But publishing, I didn't know about that. And the Beatles as well as the Beach Boys, and there's two pretty successful groups. Neither one of them were able to hang on to or own their own publishing, because when you're an act that's just starting out, you're just so happy to get something recorded and something played on the radio, or in this case on the internet these days, which is a blessing and a curse. The blessing part being that you can be heard worldwide. The curse is maybe you don't get paid. But that doesn't keep you from being known for your music and creating a following, which may someday lead to being successful at doing live performances and making a living doing it. So anyway, I would say if you're serious about music, then you should be knowledgeable about the music business, and you'll be able to self-protect better and not be taken advantage of, like so many have been.
Imagine a guy coming up to the Beatles and saying, your songs are great, I'll publish it for you. Really? So then you lose 50% of everything there, because the publisher, not the writer. You think you write something, you own it? The publisher owns it. And a lot of times in the old days, a publisher was a good thing because they would put you together with other writers. I'm not thinking people in a band, and they'd put promotion money up. I would say, Steve Jobs says, just kind of do something you love. Yeah, follow your dreams, but I would say, agree with Mike, just arm yourself with knowledge about the music business, And that all you need to know about the music business, Donald Passman, that's a lot of ammo. But I'd say mostly, don't pollute your mind with alcohol and drugs. You're gonna make stupid decisions. You know, stay clear and follow your heart. You're gonna be a very successful guy.
I can sum it up in one line that a friend told me once. Never forget that the word business is bigger than the word music.
Were you thinking of becoming a musician? Yes? Then there's two phrases that I've heard, and I'm sure everyone's heard this. Do what you love and the money will follow. And the other one was, I heard it from a jazz bassist named Steve Swallow. I don't know if he originated it, but he said, if you want to be a musician, don't do it because it's extremely hard and it's a very difficult life. But if you have to be a musician, do it because it's the greatest life in the world.
I've been so happy loving you.
Well, it's kind of a long, crazy story how I got. None of these guys knew me. I just started showing up at gigs, and after a while, they thought I was part of the band. That's the short version. But after a while, we had a little band reorganization, and then I was lead guitar player. Well, still am, but and then I became musical director. And I had a bit of a different philosophy than my predecessors, and I think it had to do with, you started to touch on this earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt Mike. Someone asked about the different technologies and advances and things like that have happened over the years. And I think that really affected the live show of the Beach Boys, because in the 60s, it was very difficult to recreate those records, the instrumentation on the records, unless you traveled with a horn section and a string section and that kind of stuff. And the economics of touring didn't really make that feasible. So what I think that Carl and the guys did as they were on the road is that they changed their arrangements to not sound just like the records, maybe in part to entertain themselves, but maybe in part because they had no other choice. They had to do something to make it viable in a live situation. And while they were, and these guys can speak better to this than I can, while they were those artists all touring together, you've all done it, gone to seen a band and there's a hit record, but they do it differently. It sounds different. Do you like that or do you not like that? Some people, it depends on the kind of music it is. But I think that at this point, 40, 50 years on, everybody's heard classic radio. Everybody knows how California Girls is supposed to sound. And nobody's interested in my version of it, okay? You want to hear what you're used to hearing. So we're not trying to sound like we're a record, but we want to play all the parts. I take the view of it the same way I think a conductor does to a score by Beethoven that he's getting ready to perform for an audience. The notes have already been written, and it's just a question of getting everybody to do their part and have them start and stop at the same time. So that's really been my focus, is to say, okay, well, let's go back to what was on the records, because that's what everybody knows. That's when it was done very economically, voice-wise, and perfectly. And why not do it that way? So in a lot of cases, we've gone back and restored some of the original vocal parts, some of the instrumental parts. And nowadays, you don't have to have a horn section and a string section necessarily in order to get the sounds, because they exist through synthesizers and samplers and keyboards. So you can have a keyboard player replicate the sound of several musicians, and therefore getting you closer to the sound of the record that you guys are all very familiar with.
God only knows what I'd be without you.
Our favorite times are probably yet to come. For instance, May 31st, Royal Albert Hall. Be there or be square. That's going to be pretty fantastic. We're already thinking about, okay, what songs that we don't ordinarily do are we going to do for that show? So, obviously, when we did July 4th in 1985 at the Washington Monument Grounds, and there are like 750,000 people there in person. We did 2 shows, an afternoon and an evening. One year we were in Philadelphia in the afternoon, in the evening in DC, and we played for over 1.5 million people live on that one day. So that has to be a high point. It's a Guinness Book of Records type of event.
One of our guitar players was some guy from Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page.
Yeah,
He was with us on that too.
Yeah, so I mean, things like that, those are obviously high points and stuff. But musically speaking, like the Royal Albert Hall, or as we mentioned, the Sydney Opera House, those are iconic places, and with audiences that are, I mean, population. Like for instance, we had a song called, a compilation album called Endless Summer in the mid-'70s. Well, the corollary in Great Britain was called 20 Golden Greats, and we sold 1 million copies in Britain. That was like 1 out of every 25 people had a Beach Boys album. That's pretty amazing. So they're kind of high points like that, but I don't usually look back all that much. I look to what are we doing tonight, and what are we going to do this year, and what about a symphonic tour in 2 years from now, and whatever. You know, I'm thinking ahead, prospectively rather than retrospectively.
I think we should say that Royal Albert Hall is really amazing, and it was built when in the 1850s.
Yeah, it's old.
It's just really wonderful, and we played there. We played there 2 years ago, and I mentioned on stage that the last time we played there as the Beach Boys was December 17th, 1970, for Princess Margaret. You know, so but what I want to get to is great places to play, but we've played at least 3 times at Carnegie Hall, and that was really cool in our own country. That's our spot.
February and March of 1968 was in Rishikesh, India, and it was really fascinating. Maharishi would speak every night, and sometimes day and night, and the Beatles were there. When I got there, the Beatles were already there, and Mia Farrow was there for a little while. Donovan was there. So it was very fascinating from that point of view, but it was really fascinating from the standpoint of what Maharishi speaking and everybody listening and meditating for many hours a day. I mean, Maharishi would literally say, okay, go and meditate as long as you can. And Prudence, I don't know if you're familiar with the song Dear Prudence. Well, Prudence didn't come out for like 3 or 4 days. She would meditate for they'd had to go and get her out of the room. She took it to heart. She ultimately has a PhD in Sanskrit from the University of California at Berkeley. So she teaches TM to this day. And that was a teacher training course in Rishikesh, India. That was the purpose of the course. And many people did become teachers, but I was so new to meditation, I just learned a couple months before in December of '67 in Paris. So I still meditate, I do, and I've gone to various long courses and so it has been, for me, it's been a life-enhancing experience. And it's something you practice on a daily basis, and it helps with a lot of things. Being able to deal with pressure, stress. You can lower your metabolism to a level of rest twice as deep as sleep, which is very profoundly restful and relaxing at the same time. So a problem doesn't necessarily disappear or go away, but it's a lot easier to deal with expanded awareness and that tranquility that comes from the meditation. But also, in tonight's show, we're going to do a song called Pisces Brothers. I call it. February 25th is George Harrison's birthday. Mine's March 15th. We're both Pisces. And when George passed away, 2002, was it? Or 2001. I wrote this song reminiscing about George Harrison, and obviously because of the time spent in India. On my birthday, I was given a painting by George of Maharishi's teacher they call Guru Dev. So I made up this song. We do it pretty much nightly in the show. And it's very sentimental, and we have a little video to go with it. And Scott here did the guitar playing on it, and it's just a very emotional experience for me to be able to do it. And it's really received well by the audience, because I think they appreciate it's a real life experience of and somebody who deserves the credit for being what he was, a very spiritual guy, a great musician, great singer. You know, he did that song Something, did Here Comes the Sun, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. He did a lot of great music. And this is something, a song that was inspired by me lyrically and musically from that experience. So that was a very transformative time for me. Whereas other people, I mean, it's really weird to me because I learned to meditate and I kept doing it. And it's not always exciting, it's sometimes boring. But the good news is it's for the health and for your longevity and stability and ability to undertake, 142 shows and deal with them and do reasonably well at it. The benefits outweigh any other negatives. But I've always found that it was kind of weird that my cousin Dennis went into heroin and alcohol and all kinds of self-destructive stuff. John Lennon is known to have done that as well, and several other people. I mean, a person can learn to meditate, and then you still have to use your intellect to make choices. Is this life-supporting or destructive? And all too many people have gone and chosen the destructive, and that to me, I understand it because people are looking for some kind of way out of what the stresses that have affected their lives, whatever they may be. But I don't know. It kind of befuddles me at the same time because you're given the choice in life of doing something that's life-supporting or not. And why would you choose the lesser? And so that's not an answer, it's just a question. But for me, the meditation has provided a real positive contribution to life. Yeah.
Well, what people don't know is we had it all set up for Pink Floyd to meet us in Dallas, Texas. And we had a really great studio and a sound studio in Dallas. And it was a fantastic studio that we were going to work in the next day after our concert. But they called the night before because they wanted the Beach Boys to sing with Pink Floyd. And we had it totally organized for them, but for some reason they couldn't get there. And so the project went away. But I got called to see if could you find some voices and work on some of the songs. And basically, they had a tax year. The English do crazy stuff. They had to be out of the country for a year for something. And so this was kind of Roger Waters' solo album. And I still have the demos of his solo album that turned into The Wall. But I want to go on record. It was supposed to be the Beach Boys singing with Pink Floyd. It wasn't supposed to be me and some hired guns.
Well, I think the definitive version was done in the late 60s. Yeah, that was when you had Carl Wilson, Alan Jardine, Mike Love, Bruce Johnson, Brian Wilson, and Dennis Wilson. All, I think everybody was at the top of their game vocally and so on. So anything that's a replication of that, I would have a tough time saying it's as good as, or I mean, it may be as good as, but for me, just thinking in terms of Carl and Brian at the level at which he was at then, like for instance, the song Wonderful, it's pretty amazing. And to compare what was done then to subsequent efforts, I don't know. For me, it doesn't come up to that level. However, a song, an album, music can be redone like every night. We replicate the songs that we're known for, and And so it can be as good, and maybe for some it would be better. But as personal taste, I would say that the original Smile things were pretty phenomenal, and we all worked very hard on them. They were shelved, however. And so then what you had is, Heroes and Villains would come out, or something else would come out in different forms, at different times. But it's the stuff we worked on originally, I personally think was the, as good as it could get.
As you guys know, that a lot of those tracks had been bootlegged over the years, but one of the issues with Smile, and the reason why, I think maybe one of the main reasons why it didn't come out back in the day, was it was so fragmentary. And I think in order to put that together was kind of beyond the technology that was available in 1966. You couldn't really effectively have put a lot of those pieces together with a razor blade and little pieces of tape. And one of the things that we really needed in order to assemble a version of Smile that was released a few years ago, we needed all the technology we could get. We needed a relational database just to be able to keep track as to where the pieces were, because they were scattered over, and I'm not exaggerating, if you include Good Vibrations, over approximately 75 reels of tape in the archive. And sometimes there was a piece of a vocal section was on this particular multi-track over here, and in some cases we're working with a vintage rough mix over there, and it was just, it was incredibly difficult to put together, but the material, especially those original vocal tracks that they put together are just amazing. And for me, the most satisfying moment in working on that whole thing was putting together a montage of just the isolated backing vocals to hear just how incredibly complex and intricate, but also how well each of these guys' voices fit into the mix. It was an amazing project, and I hope I never have to do something that hard again.
I Write the Songs is a really cool song because of this. I've been alive forever. I wrote the very first song. Chorus, I write the songs that make the whole world sing. It's my version of writing a hymn about God. So that's my cool little secret thing. But it's not a song that would have, it would be, if it had been a Beach Boy recording, it would be what I would call a career-ending song. It would be kind of like giving the Rolling Stones Tie a Yellow Ribbon. So we don't do it very much, but I'm very proud of it, and I earned a Grammy for it, and all you need is one, right? So thanks for asking.